Did you know that Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown studied the bright lights and commercial architecture of the Las Vegas Strip to develop postmodern architectural theory? They believe that the visual complexity and symbolism of Las Vegas held key lessons for how architecture could communicate with society. After World War II, modernism, particularly the international style, dominated architecture with its emphasis on function, simplicity, and universality. However, by the 1960s, architects began questioning the strict rationality and minimalism of modernism. As Charles Jenks explains in The Language of Postmodern Architecture, postmodernism arose as a reaction to the limitations of modernism, advocating for an architecture that embraced complexity, historical references, and pluralism, rather than the sterile functionalist environments that modernism often produced. Postmodernism offered a more human-centered approach, encouraging architects to draw from the past while addressing contemporary needs. Another key figure in the postmodern movement is Michael Graves, whose work was instrumental in bringing postmodern architecture into the public eye. Graves' designs reflect a deep commitment to history and ornamentation, qualities he believed modernism had stripped from architecture. His philosophy, as described in Michael Graves' Buildings and Projects, centered around the idea that buildings should communicate with people through forms and symbols drawn from classical architecture, yet adapted to modern use. One of Michael Graves' most iconic projects is the Portland Building, completed in 1982. As one of the first major postmodern skyscrapers in the United States, it represents a radical departure from the sleek glass and steel towers of modernism. The Portland Building is notable for its bold use of color and ornamentation. Graves designed the structure with a heavy reliance on classical motifs, such as pilasters, keystones, and an oversized triangular pediment that dominates the facade. As noted by James Wines in De-Architecture, the building's playful references to historical forms set it apart from the cold, impersonal aesthetics of modernism. The bright colors, teal, salmon, and ochre, challenge the monotony of the international style's monochrome palette. The building's proportions are exaggerated, with thick, oversized columns and a large central window framed by ornamental details. The exaggeration creates a sense of grandeur and irony, evoking classical architecture while simultaneously questioning its role in the contemporary world. As architectural critic Paul Goldberg noted in the New York Times, the Portland Building is both a critique and a celebration of history, blending past architectural traditions with modern materials and methods. The Portland Building exemplifies Michael Graves' approach to postmodernism, a return to ornamentation, historical references, and playful symbolism. Through this project, Graves challenged the conventions of modernism, creating a building that was visually engaging, contextually rich, and accessible to the public. Postmodernism, as seen through the work of architects like Graves, refined the role of architecture in society. It questioned the rigid functionalist ideals of modernism and instead embraced pluralism, allowing for a more diverse, symbolic, and expressive architectural language. In doing so, postmodernism created new ways of architecture to communicate, meaning both through its form and its relationship to history.